We railed on Michael last time. Since mics are live, we got a camera should pan to this guy. He's on his phone. We're trying to do a podcast.
He's very important.
Take your
very
time.
important things going on.
Standing up.
Vice
Right.
principal
That's
or whatever.
only so you can look down on all of us.
Hey, I want to share. You had a. We did not give you props for this text.
I
you sent,
recorded
Matt.
the screen because I was driving. I just saw because it shows me when you start to text and then you stop, and you start to text, stop, and that went on for 5 minutes. And
Listen,
I captured
if
a minute
I'm
of it, and
working
I was
on a
like,
heater, I want to craft
I was
this thing. I want to make it
sitting
look right.
on pins and needles like, what is Matt going to say?
Oh, it's so good. I've got the text right here, and just because they're getting along like too swimmingly
And I
right now,
need
we got
context, dear sir. We need context in this text.
Wait, okay, so Jonathan did say something like he was getting to the podcast area. Jonathan was like, I'm here, I recorded the podcast, I'm about to head home. Jonathan also did say, I made sure to insult Gilbert without him being here to defend himself as a joke.
Yeah, a not so subtle stab at me.
And I think Jonathan appreciates just the writing of this text
And
by
I
Matt.
wanted to come off the top rope, okay?
It's
I
so
wanted to
good.
fire off one here.
Getting in early and winning a competition no one knew was happening, then looking down on us from some insanely high perch, and subtly declaring our contributions unnecessary. It may be summer, but Jonathan White's brand of hubris takes no vacations.
I like it a lot better when you read it. That sounded majestic coming
If you
from you.
could somehow boil it down and get it on a T-shirt, I'd wear it.
That's pretty funny.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm glad that you own that
Just that
level
last
of
phrase,
hubris.
Jonathan White's brand of hubris takes no
It
vacation.
may be
That's what I'm
summer.
talking about. There we go.
I love it. That's a good segue to, you got anything to add to this before we take it to the next level?
No, we're going to do episode 3 of our government roundtable.
That's right.
So,
Let's take it to the next level.
Fire up that twangy music. Let's fire up that twangy music.
From the hearts of the Low Country in South Carolina.
it's the Take 2 podcast, where we take theology to the next level. All right, government, nations, and loving the stranger. We got 5 questions here. Some of these may go faster. Some of them we think are maybe intertwined. But before we get to that, there is among us who we just talked about his hubris, never
here we
taking
go.
vacation.
Yeah, he's a fellow,
This is going to get worse.
who
He's a
has
fellow.
a fellow from the Colson Center.
He wears many secret robes for many organizations.
But I guess they have 4 principles for engaging culture.
Yeah.
And Jonathan's going to share that with
So
us.
I think I was even watching one of the clips from one of my previous episodes. I tend to plug the Colson Center as often as I can. I think
It should surprise no one that he's going back watching himself on screen again. That's fantastic. I was actually going back and watching myself before showing up to film myself today.
which is funny because
I like the way you put it, Matt.
Yeah, well, when Matt's on one of these things, he's like, "Let me never ever go see that, listen to it. I want to pretend like it never happened."
Correct. Yes. It's a message in a bottle that I'm throwing out there and just hoping no one ever finds it. Hoping
Isn't that
that
a
Ty
song?
takes it out.
Message
And-
in a bottle.
There we go.
And in spite of all that, his voice is in every intro now.
Correct.
Yeah, it haunts you.
I have stuck myself on this pod much like a smell in a crawl space. You can't get rid of me, dear sir.
So.
All right, on to the 4
Yeah,
principles.
talking about Colson Center. So Colson Center is a great organization for working with cultural engagement and getting a Christian worldview down into people's lives in a robust way. And so the Colson Center has these 4 kind of pillars that you'll hear John Stonestreet, or if you even go back to Chuck Colson, you hear these things a lot. And they would say when you're engaging with culture, you want to ask questions like, what is good that we can promote, protect, or preserve? So in a Christian's engagement with culture, we recognize we have a sinful culture, but let's look for what is good, because there is common grace that God is continuously pouring out, and there are institutions that have benefited from the Christian worldview all along the way. So what is good that we can promote, protect, or preserve? What is missing that we can creatively contribute? And that's, you go back to the beginning of like actual public education in America. That is something that was missing, that the Puritans stepped into and said, we're going to educate our children because that's something that is missing, and we need them to be able to read the Bible and reason through
That's
it.
a twist. Puritans have been in public school. Like, boom.
That's
drop the
straight
bomb.
up. That's where it comes from. So what's good that we can promote, protect, preserve? What's missing that we can creatively contribute? What is evil that we can stop? And we look at things like abortion. How can we be involved in the process of stopping something evil? And then what is broken that we can restore? And so those are just as we kind of wrestle with cultural engagement, and to what degree should Christians be focused in politics without idolizing it? What is good that we can promote, protect, preserve? What is missing that we can creatively contribute? What is evil that we can try to stop? And what is broken that we can try to restore?
I love that. I think it's a great preamble to lead into this first question. And really the question is, we know perfect government's impossible. We're all sinners. Given that reality, what are the best forms of government? I think that kind of dives in there. So what do you guys say? Is there a best form of government?
Yeah, communism, because you have everything in common.
There it is.
No sharing. Everybody's sharing everything, just like the early church.
Of course.
Yeah.
Just like the early church.
How to trigger a bunch of reform guys, myself included.
We were about to just move you to the left side of the table. We were just going to shift everybody down a side. We're going to go from there.
For clarity, I do not believe the things that I just said. Just
I'm
in
going to
case.
clip that, you know.
Yeah, just that.
Really?
And then do one of Michael's faces.
I would have said, especially probably in my conservative naivete, that a capitalistic market with good antitrust laws forcing people to actually compete is your best form of government. I may still believe that. I guess that's more of an economic system than it is necessarily a government, because I guess you could have that paired up with different types of rule. I think there's still, given the evilness of mankind, that still can be abused. So I don't know.
But I think you're thinking the right way. It's like, man, what do we do if we know we're sinners?
Yeah.
Like, how do we take that into account if you're designing a governmental system where there are checks and balances and there's ways to ferret that out and not feed into that?
Correct. And I think, so let's start with the obvious here, and I don't know if you said this in some other area. It depends on the leader that you have available to
That's
you.
big.
And so when you ultimately have, at the end of time, we're going to have a monarchy, basically.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the
Divine
greatest thing
right
that possibly
of that
happen.
king.
Yeah, and guess
Yeah.
what? Yeah, that king gets to make all the decisions, and
That's right.
everybody's better for it.
Right.
However, in a world where that's not possible, what you want is, in my opinion, to spread the power as thinly as you possibly
I
can.
love it.
To set up kind of a way of protecting against abuses.
Right.
And so you get what we would now call small L liberal, small L democratic capitalism in this regard, which is going to be, I think, the best form we can come up with. However, people in a democracy get what they want. And when people are
Scary.
evil, or when people are lackadaisical, as we very often are, or when people are too prone to be entertained and not to take real serious matters in life, you get poor government because that's what you picked. And so there are problems with liberal democratic capitalism in this regard, and I think that's it. However, the strength that it has is not that it creates better policies. The strength that you get is that it quickly allows you to escape bad ones,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's not me. That came from somewhere I read, heard, whatever. So that's not my line here, but I think that's the best way to look at this. It's not that democracy is going to give you the best outcome, or a republic, if we're looking at us more specifically. It is that it allows you to get out of bad options quicker, in a way that bad options are more sticky and more totalitarian forms of government.
And something that I've actually heard you say, to your infinite credit.
Wow, infinite.
Oh, there we
Go
go.
ahead and put it. That might have been a Michael face right there.
I think I'm more uncomfortable when you're nice to me.
I know,
Like, I don't
and
like
I
this.
like it.
Sweating.
I
He's like-
And we're sitting close to each other.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you
Yep.
through this thing, and it's very weird. It's odd.
So one thing that now some of y'all might not know
Zach's
this,
giggling over here.
but some of y'all might not know this, but Matt and I taught in classrooms right next to each other for 6 glorious years. They were glorious.
This one way to explain it. Yeah, there we go.
It
was awesome. It was
in like 3 to 5 minute breaks in between classes, and then sometimes before school, sometimes after school, we would have conversations about these kinds of things. And something that has stuck with me is that something about our form of government that is beautiful is whatever sword you use in your legislative world, you you also take that sword and give it to your enemy.
Yeah.
And so when you're thinking about, I mean, that's a great check and balance for this form of government that we have, is that whatever weapon you create, you also hand one to your opponent.
And the problem I think we have right now is that both political parties are ruling like they'll never be in power again.
That's right.
And so they're pulling out all the stops without any regard for tomorrow in a world where political power vacillates massively. They're worried so much about today and not for tomorrow that it's kind of scary to me. And what that does is make every election more of an existential
it gets
issue.
Bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Executive branch, I just like how we always had this much power. It just seems like it's so much power.
Yeah, and the problem isn't tribalism is kind of the idea I keep coming back to, is if we're not willing to clean out our own tent and call out people within our own side who abuse executive power, you create issues, because eventually that is going to cause you to lose executive power because there's no check on it, and the other side's going to behave just as despicably as the worst. They're going to justify their behavior by basically taking the worst form of your side and saying, we're going to be 1% less awful than that, and we'll justify our behavior by doing it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, to add on to just try to diagnose some of this, I think part of this is we are closer to hyper democracy than what we ever were. I think our founding fathers had some wisdom, and I think most people think that they thought that every person was equal, and I don't think that they thought that. Obviously, I'm not necessarily trying to take away voting rights, but not every single person had voting rights at that time. And they also saw a big difference between the populace, the people, and the states that make up our, what do we call it? Our
Electorate?
Government. There's
You
a
were
better word
pulling
for that.
me into an anti-17th Amendment rant, and I'm holding back with such self-control right now.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. Let's go.
Yeah, so I think senators should still be elected by the states. States should have a voice in the process. And right now, senators are just very high-powered representatives of the people and not representatives of the states themselves. And so I think sometimes if we had senators that weren't having to pander to people, and that they were just elected from the politicians of the state, and they were there to represent that state and that state's interest, then we might not be in the bad state we are.
That's good. One more thing I would say about government. We talked about perfect government's going to come way in the future, but until then, and we talked about this on an earlier episode, every government tries to legislate morality in some capacity, but at the end of the day, external stipulations cannot fix internal brokenness. No matter how good it is, you might have people externally conforming, but that is not redeeming people. Keeping that in mind.
Yeah, I think I would just add to that. I think this is what you're saying. But correct me if you're wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me if you're wrong.
I'm wrong. You got it. Okay.
How do we get that on a shirt?
That's good.
Correct me if you're wrong. I think what you're saying is that legislation cannot bring someone to a saving knowledge of Christ.
Exactly. In my mind, is
It could
Ezra
inform their
Nehemiah, and there's a new
conscience.
temple, and there's a newly restored Jerusalem, and Nehemiah's just beating up people because they're terrible.
Yeah.
And Ezra's sitting appalled and tearing out his beard, and I'm like, they had everything,
Right.
but that's not gonna fix things.
Right. I would just say I think good government can inform consciences, can help provide discipline. By discipline, I mean I guess punishment
should,
is and could help constrain people so that maybe they are more perceptive or receptive to the gospel. I don't know.
No, I think you're totally right, and government should do that. But even when it does do that, and this is just on my mind with Ezra Nehemiah, is like the walls that Nehemiah rebuilt were being used to break the Sabbath. It was like the very things that were good, and I'm not saying, and he's a good example of leaders, so it's like good but not perfect. But we should aspire to do those good things.
Right. But I think, the two hosts are still in it right now. We'll turn it back over to our guests. But to put it back
Go
over
nuts,
to
man.
what-
You're taking the heat
to
off
what
of me right
Matt-
now.
We've been chatting a while.
Matt was saying is that we try for our best here, knowing that it's never going to reach the level that it will be when we have that benevolent dictator in the future.
And that's been characteristic of Christians and their relationship to governments from the beginning. It has been this recognition that, so we have a responsibility here and now. But our government is never going to be salvific. It's never going to rise to the level of perfection.
We're not the moon, Israel.
And so we're another podcast. So we work in broken systems, which I think is why those 4 pillars from the Colson Center turn out to be a pretty good framework.
And I want to say this. This is off topic a little bit, but when I was looking at point number 2 you had there, which is what is missing, what can we creatively contribute? Y'all mentioned it recently, but there's been a massive kind of outpouring in the last, say, 10, 15 years of secular scholars at pretty, not Christian institutions, but pretty anti-Christian institutions who are now starting to point out the unique contributions to government in Western society that religion has added, namely the idea of human rights and the idea that we are made in the image of God. That's where that comes from.
Yep.
And that foundation is a unique contribution to politics from Christians, and secular people are saying that. The book that I think you mentioned was
Tom Holland, right?
Tom Holland, Dominion, where he's like looking at the Roman Empire. He's like,
Not Tom Holland, the actor.
not that guy. Not that guy. Okay, much older, much more decrepit looking. I'm guessing much smarter. But he honestly kind of looked at that, and that was kind of eye-opening to see.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things that it starts to become irrefutable when even the secular world is going, we don't really have a great way to explain the foundation for the sanctity of human life, or why human life matters in a different way than other than the effect of Christians.
Love it so much. And so we've been talking about it, like how much. Do you guys love hearing this, like separation of church and state? Like, I feel like that's always thrown into like Christian space. Like, hey, have you guys heard of the separation of church and state? You're like, don't think we're interpreting this the correct way.
Correct.
Like,
That
how much
100%.
should religion or
That
religious
letter.
ideas influence government?
That letter from Thomas Jefferson that people start thinking that phrase is in
The
our
Constitution.
founding document.
Right.
Well, you have the Establishment Clause. I think that is right next to the what's the other clause right next to it? Free Exercise Clause of religion. So like, I get uncomfortable when we're talking only about the Establishment Clause and not the the other one. If that makes sense, I'm drawing a blank.
Free
right now.
exercise.
Free Exercise Clause. There we go. Appreciate you.
Call it the Jim Clause.
Sure. We'll go with that.
I like it.
Yeah, there he is. There he is. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
Go. You go.
My apologies.
You're about to say something.
Let's do this. So on next question we're looking at here is how much should religion and/or religious ideas be part of how we make decisions in the government? Correct. That's kind of where we're going. I talk about this with kids pretty regularly because I think, and this is going to be, I think, a pretty strong statement, all moral perspectives are religious perspectives to some extent, that they cannot be proven through a microscope. There's no way to empirically prove a moral position. And so when we enter into the realm of morals, we are all talking about things we take as articles of faith in our life. Now, I, as a Christian, think all my opinions on moral issues are undergirded by my belief in God. And by the way, so if you read through the Constitution, that's the way, or the particular Declaration of Independence, that's the way it looks there. And so what I'm saying in this is, when we approach this issue, you can't say, well, we need to have a secular stance that's just grounded in fact, and you can keep your religious positions at home, because we are all operating on faith when we talk about moral issues. There's no way to prove a moral position. There just isn't.
Yeah, you're necessarily in the realm of metaphysics when you
Correct. And so if we're both in that area, why should my metaphysical position be held back and yours should be put in public? And also, Tim Keller's going to point this out too. Again, I know y'all people don't roll with Presbyterians here, but if you bring me on, there's going to be an obligatory Tim Keller reference here.
I've got Tim Keller books on my bookshelf, so
There we go.
let's roll with it.
Okay, awesome. There we go. We're free here. I think I hit you with a Tim Keller one last time. So the next thought is this. He points out that it's not just, we tend to look at this issue and say, okay, the issue is not just about ends, and that we all agree on ends and we're disagreeing on means of how to reach that end. It's that religious people and non-religious people are going to have different ends. So take marriage as the primary example. The modern individualistic approach of people in America is to say that marriage is primarily about human happiness. Yeah. However, I think the Christian standard is about human holiness first and foremost, and so that's part of it here. Or it's about the good of the family and things like that. If you look at more of an Eastern approach, and so if we're all coming at this issue not even able to agree on what marriage should be about. So how can we make laws when we're trying to get to fundamentally different places? We have to show up with our worldview intact to make those decisions. If that made any sense.
Total sense.
Absolutely. And I will say there may be someone out there who listened to what you're saying, and because I've heard his name's going to slip my mind, but he's an atheist who's debated William Lane Craig before. But he'll say, we know, he would say this to what you're saying. We know what makes humans flourish, and that is a scientific question. And so you're wrong because we should just enact laws that let humans flourish. But so if you're out there, you're listening to what Matt just said, and that's what you're thinking, you're wrong because you're smuggling in the idea that human flourishing is a good thing.
Yeah, totally.
Flourishing is a value statement, and you're making a statement also by saying that, forgive me, that the group position is more important than my individual position, which tends to run contrary to what most Americans believe in the first place.
Yes, but since the 60s, expressive individualism has been the rule of secular life.
Correct.
It's just what's good for me is good for me, and I can kind of ignore the rest of the world.
Correct.
I love it. It's good. And so we see that everyone's making a value statement. I think that's really important. And we would say biblical principles, like people do flourish under those things. That's a good reason. And then you were saying this earlier, Jonathan, maybe it was a different episode. At the same time, there's different spheres. They're not the same institution, religion and Christianity, where different objectives, but it's not so stark where they don't overlap. Anything else we want to say on that before we start talking about USA versus the world?
Good. I thought, we're in a dicey ground. Let's get out to some thinner ice.
I said it in a provocative way. Do Christians have a moral obligation to prioritize the good of their own nation over other nations? Is there a certain ordering that is scriptural? Where some people I hear draw the analogy like, I take care of my family. You kind of work out in these concentric circles, and by proxy of that, you're going to take care of your nation before a nation across the globe. What say you all?
And this is one that I struggle with a lot, and I don't see how I can, from a biblical perspective, say that I can take a more nationalistic approach here to say that American humanity is more important than humanity elsewhere. That somehow I need to look at. Maybe not in value, but in priority, certain image bears different
It's not
than others.
valuable. Yeah, not different value. I like that.
Well, and if you swing, you want to kind of avoid the pitfall of over spiritualizing things, but somebody could make the argument the gospel has been spread throughout America. People in America can hear the gospel on most street corners because there are churches all over the place. There are other places in the world where it simply has not been spread. And so when you're talking about prioritizing the good of a nation, it's like there are these things are bumping into each other. What do we mean by the good of the nation? You almost have to define the term. Are we talking about Christians looking towards economic welfare and national defense? Are we talking about Christians leaning into the propagation of the gospel? What is the good of that nation?
Yeah, I think that could go in multiple ways. Right now, we are kind of in a, back in the Cold War, we were always had our eye on Russia, and we used China.
Is this going to be a Hunt for Red October reference?
Yeah, we should have a Hunt for Red October reference. Yeah. I mean, every podcast should have a Hunt for Red October
we had,
reference. Just
so you guys know, we had about 5 Sunday schools in a row that did have a Hunt for Red October reference. Usually directed at me, not having seen the movie. It was like, hey, Zach, what's this clip from? Or what's this picture from? So, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, one ping, Mr. Facility.
There it was. I was waiting. I wanted some Sean
Anyway,
Connery
you were
on here.
making a good
I was trying to.
Yeah, good job.
In the Cold War, we were against Russia, and we probably did things that hurt the Russian people in our mind so that we could, as a people, survive. Right now, while I wouldn't downplay Russia, they're still a global power. China is our kind of our number one near peer enemy that we're trying to do. And so does it make sense for us to sabotage Chinese factories or something? That could be on the far end of the extreme of it versus, hey, we just want to take care of our people and we want to have good things going on inside our country, good laws, good policies and stuff. And so I think there's this continuum of what's good for us, where it goes from just what's good for us to what's good for us because we are actually harming other people. And I think probably there's some cases where when we've harmed countries, it's been good because they've been bad countries. and you'd have to define that. And there's places where that hasn't been good because we're just looking out for our number one.
Or we've done cynical empire stuff.
Yeah.
I like that, painting it in extremes to help us like see clearly, because you don't want. We've all seen the idolatry of a nation like way too far. You're putting people that talk like that, and then at the same time you don't want to be in favor of globalism, and you're helping these people here, and you're ignoring your children's needs and the needs in your community. That's not good either.
Is a nation state beholden to something like Philippians 2:4 that says, "Look to the interests of others"? Because if you try to contextualize a passage like that and say, well, this is really talking about people in the body of Christ in the context of the passage.
Right.
Do you extrapolate that out further than the body of Christ? We should be looking out for the interests of those that are around us, even though they're not in the body of Christ. I have always had this contention as I look at Scripture and I look at the world. Does a nation state have an obligation? And to complicate it, let's just say that the nation state is led by an actual believer. Is there now an obligation to perform this to the world? Look to the interests of others. For me, that's a really hard question to try to parse.
Because you're essentially making an oath that you'll look out for the interests of Americans first when you take any sort of major public office. And yet I do think to some ways that violates the spirit of the Christian faith.
I think there probably should be some tension between what the government is supposed to do and what we're supposed to do as individuals. And then if you're an individual in that office, then it's like with this side of my mind, I'm doing this, but with this side of my mind, I'm doing that. And I think what you talked about, I think you were saying it in a way about the gospel being on every street corner. So what does it mean? Because we should get the gospel over there, but we have also been sending the gospel over there too. And I ponder sometimes. I look at the debauchery that America has currently. Like, God, thank you, but why are you letting us continue to have the prosperity? And maybe we're just around the corner from it all collapsing. You never know. So I've said a lot to say nothing, really.
Well, I think this does like to get a little bit more tangible and talk more specifics. How should love your neighbor apply to foreign policy and immigration? And that's really when I think what you're saying comes into play, maybe on an individual level versus policy level. Like, tension is good. If there's no tension, one way or the other, it's probably not healthy.
Yeah. I think, I am all for bringing in people who want to largely adopt our culture and our values, if we mean the Judeo-Christian values.
And what does American values mean?
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is tough these days.
But I know what you're saying. Like, at our core, those are good values.
There's still enough institutional memory of those things that still is part of the American ethos. There's that word again.
Who would come here and count themselves as Americans and want what's best for America. I think our immigration policy is really, it's very tough to do it legally these days. And then we have certain swings where we encourage a lot of people to come in and do it the wrong way.
With every change, it's so tough. And I know Jonathan can probably speak to this like personally the best. I know my brother is married to a Peruvian, and boy, we went legally. Really hard to do, really expensive to do. Took like 3 or 4 years, like because it was during COVID. It's like took a really long time living overseas. Like didn't see my brother for 2 years, and these kind of things. And that's like just the reality of it. And I wish it was better. And you look at these things, and it's very complicated. I know, Jonathan, you probably could speak much more specifically to just viscerally feeling that and the different challenges associated.
It is really hard to work through this. I'll say I grew up listening to conservative talk radio, and so I heard a lot of Rush Limbaugh. I heard a lot of Glenn Beck coming up until I kind of got to a point in my life I was like, this is not good for me, because if you grew up like me in a very conservative area hearing conservative talk radio hosts, all you heard about immigration was these are criminals and rapists coming across the border, and they are evil. Like all of the people that you see, mostly brown-skinned people coming across the border, are evil. And it is that is a dangerous idea to just drink in through something like talk radio for years and years on end, because it has real effects on the way that you see people who are made in the image of God. So my wife is Mexican, and we've got family all over the place. And I will say that experience in this realm does change your, I'm going to make up a word right now, your heart set about the situation. It might change your mindset too, but it changes. You hate this word. I can already.
No, I'm actually okay. For the record, you don't know what I'm going to say here, because what I enjoyed was you could not go to some highfalutin word.
I was going to say the same thing. Nice.
And so what I saw was the collapse of this like veneer of sophistication, and go down to us common people here, where we just kind of got to make up terms to get by. But I wasn't trying to ruin your train of thought, because I was trying to be a decent guy. So there you go.
Well, let's muck around with this word a little bit, because again, growing up a certain way, having certain views that you just unthinkingly absorb, and then having actual experience, whether it's going to another place and being a minority in another place, or whether it is having family members that are coming from difficult circumstances and trying to come into the country, or people that are getting deported, that experience really does change your heart for the people that are trying to escape horrible circumstances. And this is the only kind of gleam of hope that they have coming here. And I'm not saying that the emotional side of it is the thing that should shape legislation, but I think that it is gross. And now, I mean, again, because of experience, unconscionable for there to be people who just glibly dismiss the plight of immigrants. And so you can swing way far in the other direction and be like, hey, screw national security, open the doors. Right. And that's also not wise for a nation state to do. But man, you go back to what Mr. Gilbert has talked about at previous times, there are these middling institutions, especially churches, that should be the ones who are really stepping into that arena and what's missing that we can creatively contribute, helping people that are suffering have a pipeline and a pathway into American culture and American citizenship, which churches do. And our church actually has been involved in that process with an Afghan refugee and with another family now that is coming from Africa. And so like that's something that, I don't know, it really I've gotten to a point in my life where it bothers me to hear people glibly dismiss the plight of immigrants, but that also can't, the emotional side also can't be what dictates your legislation.
Right. Sure, and we can distinguish between
you're good.
Between policy also and just rhetoric about the issue, because I think that if I was talking through policy, when we talked earlier about like what things can be said from a stage and as a pastor, and I talked about the pro-life movement, I think at least the rhetoric on social media or just on talk radio, in which you seem to very clearly downgrade the fact that these people are made in the image of God and how we talk about them, is clearly sinful. And so when we get into a policy, I think we can, as Christians, can have different levels of how much immigrants should come in, how much should we enforce it based on, or how much should we be using those people who are enforcing those policies to be doing something else, because there is a give and take with how many law enforcement officers do we have and how much resources go to this. But what cannot be sacrificed is the fact that we understand and that we as Christians speak about people made in the image of God as if they're people made in the image of God, as if they, when I look at my daughter all the time, my daughter reminds me so much of my wife. And I love my daughter and my wife. This is how I use with my kids in school all the time. If she so much so reminds me of my wife and her mannerisms and her demeanor, that if I did not love her, you would question my love for my wife. Yeah. And I love both of them. And so that hopefully logically plays out in how I do things. And so when we talk about people like this who are made in the image of God, we need to be careful to talk about them that way, whatever the policy ends up being. And I talk too much.
That's good. So. And even all politics, like, I'm mad at a president, I'll talk about that, and that's just like basic, not Right. But go ahead, Michael.
You're saying you should see Trump as made in the image of God.
Sometimes, yeah. That's what I'm saying transparently. Yeah.
I echo everything that you say and agree, and I want to talk about a situation. Is there a place in your mind, hopefully there is, for someone, maybe me, who could rejoice at deportations and self-deportations because you rejoice in the law of the land reigning, even though you may go, okay, we need to tweak the law of the land. It's broken how it is. And then yet still look at individually tough cases. I won't say a name. There's a kid who went to a different school, Northside, was brought here illegally by his parents when he's very young. So the law is not on his side. He can't even claim what people would call like an anchor baby. Was brought here through really no fault of his own doing, and yet now finds him in a very awkward situation that he is here illegally. He's only known this country forever. And yet he is scared of being deported because he's not a U.S. citizen. And so I think that's kind of what you're getting at, Jonathan.
And that is a very common experience. There are a lot of kids who stopped going to school in the past year simply because they do not know if an officer is going to show up at their school or they're going to get home and their parents are going to be gone.
Man.
Like that is very widespread in some communities.
I think sadly that's probably part of we talked about the power turning over and different policies going back and forth and back and forth. And it's like that's not good for us to put these people in this situation. It's not good for his parents to put him in that situation. So there, you got to recognize that there was some bad play there. But
although I will push back on that just a little bit to say that every one of us would do it for our family if we were in the situation that
without a doubt.
Yeah, I hear that argument, and I think maybe yes, but I think if I had to smuggle my family into Singapore, I would probably do that, knowing
consequences
could
come.
And
question for the group too, because this is also another real life example. My parents, they live in Florida. They're affiliated with a Spanish church that uses their facilities, largely illegals. I think some people would say your responsibility is to turn these people in because you want to keep the law, and I don't think that's you know what I mean. And I think
tough.
I would not, would we call like pastors to say, hey, we just need to turn them in because we're keeping the law. Because that would be tough.
I haven't turned in the people I know who are here illegally. So
and that's where like I think the one place I'd have issues with you is not that we can have a policy that can be a just policy that could be, we can be happy that a policy be put in place, because right now the fact that the laws change every 4 years creates this nebulous world where people don't know what to trust in terms of the law. So I think the most just thing to do would be to have a policy that is clear, that transcends one administration to the next. But I think both sides want the political football to kind of pass back and forth and use it for campaign dollars and not necessarily for the issue itself. My one place I would be concerned would be the word rejoice. I don't like that word to describe. I can say I'm thankful for a government that is maintaining order, that is keeping people safe, and also they're making.
I chose it on purpose.
and that's
to push it,
and that's pushing it. I think, but I think I can be thankful for a government that's dealing with it. I think you can say that the thing that we can only help so many people. And so we need to have a policy of how many people come in. I get really worried because the people who are saying, well, just come in the right way, are also people who want to limit and make difficult coming in the right way. I think the just thing to do would be have a larger number of people that can come into the country and have a policy that is a much easier process, so you don't have people kind of in limbo for years at a time when they try to do things the right way.
Well, we've also had quotas that have changed radically, and I think... I don't, it's hard to put a value on a human life, but, we do. We say, if you're a doctor, you come in. If you're a common laborer, maybe not. But our quotas have vastly discouraged, white-skinned people of late, and been more towards brown-skinned people. And I think that's wrong. I would also think it's wrong if we vastly flipped that and we said only white people can come into our country and no brown skin. So I think one thing that we're all agreeing is that there are current immigration policy and how it changes every 4 years or every 8 years is not good.
In that it comes largely from executive order because we know those people are term limited, and that it does not come from our Congress, who does almost nothing and who's betrayed us on both sides, because those are the laws that are actually going to be lasting, and they could actually put together a policy that would work, but both sides of the political aisle are completely content to maintain the issue for campaigning purposes and to turn it over to the executive branch to make those decisions because they're term limited out and they don't have to face re-election.
I think you nailed it there, where it's like, man.
Well, I'm stopping myself from talking about all of the alphabet of things that are underneath the executive branch that are not constitutional, because they de facto create, interpret, and enforce law, but we don't call them law, we call them regulation, and that's not good.
Correct.
Man. And we've talked about so many things. It's just like at the end of the conversation, we can have like some final thoughts if people want to get stuff out, but it does just leave you like longing for more, wanting more, hoping for more, like gives you this feeling, which I think is a good feeling to have. And the fact that you need to look to Christ. Not that it's good to like never be happy about anything, but
I'll wrap up. I guess what I would say wrapping up is that in my own mind, I think, man, if America falls, what's going to happen to this world? As bad as America is, if we were to collapse, man, the whole world would be covered in darkness, and I'm demonstrating my lack of faith.
Okay, so that's okay. Here we go.
He was going to yank it back. He was putting it back.
And God's sovereignty and ability to move through bad times, like the world hasn't been bad before. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and think of just the blip that America has been on the cosmic calendar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I talked about this before, so I do want to get into this real quick because it is on my heart with this issue, is that this is a place where we're dealing with idolatry on a particularly large scale right now. And so the image that comes to my mind is that image from 2016 where a clear Hillary Clinton supporter and every kind of right-wing social media account has posted this image of this woman who's like just found out Trump has won, and she's just in anguish, and she's holding her hands up and she's crying. And for the conservatives out there who are more pugilist types, they made all kinds of hay off of this. There we go. Okay, I could smell his approval behind me, and that's what hurt me the most. So back on to my point here, and it bothers me for a lot of reasons. Number one, that somebody's put that much faith in their political leader, and I think we saw it on the other side when Trump lost in 2020 or whatever it was, that there are plenty of conservatives. You could pick any face there and meme them or whatever and get in the same situation. And the problem is not in which one of these leaders you're putting your faith in. The problem is that you're putting your faith in any of these leaders at all. And so as Christians, I think I, in my life, have different areas of idolatry that is not politics. Like, I don't put a lot of faith in this, but I do come at this humbly saying, when I'm calling out other people to worry about their idols, I want to say that I have them too. We all do. We're constantly in the business of getting rid of idols, but for a lot of us, our idols are politics right now. And if we cannot behave in a way that doesn't have this much existential angst, that every election our moods don't live and die with what happens, we are not shown that we believe God be sovereign, as you said. And so whether it's that issue of our demeanor, how much does politics change the way we feel, our demeanor throughout our day, how much faith are we putting in political leaders who, by and large, and I would say almost with unanimity, is that what I'm doing here?
Unanimity.
Okay, unanimity, there we go, don't care about us. They just don't. They're on our side for reasons that are, I think, cynical. Also, I think how we talk to other people who disagree with us and how often we hear their opinions. Do we caricature their opinions? Did we hear the opinions of left-wingers from right-wingers and then take that as gospel truth? Are we willing to listen to the other side ever to hear if they do make a point that might actually line up with Scripture? Or do we assume everybody on the other side is evil? That's a huge deal as well.
I assume everyone on every side is evil.
And I think that's a much better approach, and I'm good with that. Total depravity. Listen, you got the right guy for that. That's how I roll. And so, but I do think we do need to be careful about that. How do we talk about them? How do we experience victory? How much do we get online and fire off unkind words to people who are going through, their idols being taken away when they lose? Do we use this as an opportunity for ministry? That kind of thing. Or do we behave exactly like the world in wins and losses? And in our day-to-day life, how much angst we have over politics.
Mic drop. It's good.
No, please don't drop the mic.
Yeah. Hold on to that mic dearly.
This mic's suspended. I can't drop it.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts? You want to get out anything else before we wrap it?
Jonathan, do you have any summary statements?
Are we going to wrap? That's what's going to happen? I'm just not going to stop coming back to this framework of like what's good that you can promote.
Yeah.
What is missing that you can, in a fundamentally Christian way, contribute? What is evil that you can stop? And what is broken that you can restore? Those are framework questions for us to be thinking about as we engage with culture.
Love it. Now we do the awkward thing where we're like, how are you guys going to end the episodes?
I have one more question for Matt, but I'm looking at our time. So maybe different podcast, different time. So, yeah.
Wow, I like that cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Tune in next time.
Well, fellas, once again, you guys should be
Take
like
us
experts
out.
now.
I think I'm good on this now. We ready? I don't know how to time this up. And I'm going to point again because now I have to because I've done it every other time.
Okay.
We ready? And that's our take.
Thanks for listening to Take Two. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube for those who want to watch our videocast.